Welcome back, everybody, to another review. Today, we're going to be talking about the newest film in the trilogy that is going to come out soon, The Strangers Chapter 2. Now, for anybody that doesn't know my history for the Strangers movies, I know I wasn't doing YouTube or videos when even Chapter 1 came out, but this is a franchise that I actually really enjoy. Well, let me say that again. I have a huge love for the first film that came out in 2000, was it 2008, 2007? I think it's 2008. And I don't know, I just saw that movie at the right time and it really stuck with me. I actually had a friend to show me that movie and it really was effective on me. Like the way that they did the sound design, the way that it was a home invasion, the way that it was just this, hey, we're coming into your house because you're home and we can do that. So that was really effective to me as seeing that at a certain age. Now I know that movie, it seems now that I've gotten older and I've been more in the movie circuit, it seems that a lot of people either really like or really do not like that movie. So when I first saw it, it seemed like everybody pretty much liked it, and now it's the opposite, or it's kind of right there in the middle. You either love it or hate it. And finally, years down the road, we ended up getting not really a sequel, but it was kind of its own thing called The Strangers Prey at Night, which took more of a slasher approach than more of the home invasion type thing. I actually was somebody that really enjoyed that movie. I had a lot of fun with it, and I just walked away having fun with it. I didn't like it as much as the original, but I still walked away having a good time with it. And now we come to this trilogy of movies that's getting ready to come out. I remember first hearing about this trilogy, how they were going to reboot The Strangers and how they were going to turn it into a trilogy, and it was going to be done by Rennie Harlan, and that kind of piqued my interest. I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. I'm kind of curious to where you can go with this, or what all you can do with it, or what kind of backstory or what kind of things are you going to tell us about these stranger characters or whatever people that we're following. And with chapter one, it was kind of that thing that I figured where even from the trailers of chapter one, it just looked like a watered down version of the original. And yeah, while it pretty much was that, there was a few good like tension scenes here and there, but overall, it's just a movie that I don't know. It just didn't work for me. Like I said, the first one, the original one, is so strong to me. So I understand that you were going to have to do a reboot of it to kind of kick this trilogy off. So I was like, okay, once we got that movie out of the way, I'm very curious to see where chapters 2 and 3 go because I'm curious, like I said, to see what you're going to add to those two extra movies that are coming out. So now, before I get into to anything that didn't work for me and all that good stuff, I want to start out by saying I think there is some really good tension in the beginning of the movie. I think that there's a whole hospital scene in the beginning, and I think the way that certain things are shot really is really cool. How it does these overheads into these long hallway shots, and I think that's really cool. It's very pleasing to the eye, and I think it worked really well for this type of movie. It has that flavor that helps it build tension, and I really like the way that was done. I don't feel like that really lasts throughout the whole movie, though. I feel like it's really the best in the beginning, and I feel like the tension is really there in the beginning because it's like you're going through the hospital scene, and it's the same if you've seen the trailer about. There's the scene where she's kind of down in the basement tunnel area of the hospital, and you see the masked guy down the hallway, and he starts to run towards her. That was a really cool scene, how it was shot. And again, it does really good at building that tension. So I did enjoy the beginning, and like I said, it builds to this continuation. Since we saw chapter one, it picks pretty much right up where chapter one left off. And I want to say I do think our lead actress here, Madeline Pesh, is really good in this part. I think she does a fantastic job of carrying this movie because she has to. This whole movie pretty much is on her shoulders. And with chapter one, it was her and her boyfriend. But spoiler, if you haven't seen chapter one, her boyfriend does not make it out. So it's very much her, having to carry this whole movie. And she does a very good job of, being scared and just trying to get away from these people. And you buy into all the emotions that she's feeling. You pretty much buy into all of that. And she does such a great job of carrying that throughout this entire movie. Now, I haven't seen really any other work she's done. I know she got really famous because of the show Riverdale. I've never watched that show. But in this movie, in both of these movies, she has been really good. And there's no doubt about that. I feel that she'll carry that on into chapter 3, and she'll continue just to be just as good in chapter 3. Now, sadly, that is pretty much all the positives for me. I saw this movie premiered at Fantastic Fest literally just a couple days before it came out, and the reviews coming out of Fantastic Fest was not good at all. So, already going in with low expectations, and then after seeing everyone say that it was just not that great, I kind of already had it in my mind. I was like, okay, I'm just going to go watch this. I'm going to try to have a good time with it, because that's what I normally try to do when it comes to movies like this. And I don't know, it just after when I talked about the beginning scene, this movie pretty much becomes a 90-minute chase sequence is what it is. And while that is cool to a degree, it kind of, grows old after a while. And I really wanted more of that dreaded tension throughout the movie, and sadly, really after the beginning, at least to me, I didn't get that anymore because of how many times this is done, how repetitive this chase sequence becomes throughout it. And there is a part that happens about midway through the movie that to me just kind of comes out of nowhere, that I'm kind of like, what the hell? And I heard people from Fantastic Fest as well talking about this sequence and how they all just kind of looked at each other and were like, what is this? And immediately, as soon as I saw it, I was like, where did this come from? Why is this in the movie? What purpose does this serve to the story? And unfortunately, yeah, it's so out of left field that it really takes me out of the movie, because I'm like, am I watching the same movie? But that might just be me. People might go see this and see that particular scene and be like, what are you talking about, Mike? That was really awesome. That was a really tense moment. It really added something for them. And if that's the case, congrats to you. I'm happy for you. But for me, it was so out of left field that I was like, is this still the same movie? And it does the same old thing that the chapter 1 did, where it tries so hard for this entire town to seem like a bunch of weirdos, that you're like, dude, you're coming on so strong that literally every person that she meets could be the killer, or the killers or whatever. They just beat you over the head with the fact that every single person in this town is somewhat off. Like, they're just either creepy or weird, or they just give this bad vibe. And they do it so much that you're like, well, obviously the entire town has to be on this, because you're like, is there no normal person in this entire town? And that's fine to a degree. I just feel like I just wish that they would turn it down a little bit. It doesn't have to be so over the top with every single character. Now, thankfully, in this one, there is a nurse character that she does seem normal. Her, besides our main character here, is about the only two normal people. Everybody else gives that persona of, oh, well, this guy could be the killer, or this girl could be the killer, and I don't know why they ramp that up so much. And this movie also tries to answer questions about the Tamra character. If you guys have seen the original one, it's something that's carried in all 3 movies so far, or actually all 4 movies so far, about, when the girl first comes to the door, she asks, is Tamra home? And, at the time, when you're watching the original movie, you're like, oh, it's just a random name she gives because she just wants to see if these people are home. No, in this movie, they try to dive more in the backstory of that. And why? Just why? I'm one of those people that like certain things to be left ambiguous. Like, I don't want everything explained to me, because I think it takes away from the creepiness, or it takes away something from a character. Like, I don't want to know Michael Myers' backstory, because I feel like him just randomly, snapping one Halloween night is scary enough, because he looks like he came from a normal family, unless you watch the Rob Zombie version. And it was the same with A Quiet Place. When they were talking about a sequel to A Quiet Place, I was like, oh no, I don't want to know where any of these creatures came from, because it's scarier that way. Thankfully, I was proven wrong with that. But it's the same thing with this movie. With the roots of the original movie, it's just these 3 random people that show up at your house to torment you because they can, and because you were home. That in and of itself is scary enough to drive the whole movie. I don't have to know where they came from, why they're doing what they're doing, who this person is, what her backstory is. I don't have to know any of that, and honestly, I don't want to know any of that. But this movie tries to take a little bit of that and give a little bit of a backstory for some of the killers, and again, explain who Tamra is. And it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, but I don't want to know who these people are, because it's scarier not knowing. So I'm sure that they'll obviously explain more of that in chapter 3. And yeah, I'm already here and I'm already invested, so of course I'll go see it, and I'm curious where it's gonna go, but I just don't know if how they're laying this stuff out, if it's gonna really work for me. Just who I am as a movie person. Now I know some people love prequel stuff and love stuff, that's explained to them and gives them a full backstory of something. If that's the case, this movie actually might be for you. But I don't know, just my movie going taste and the stuff that they try to explain, they're answering questions that I didn't want to know. So it's just one of those things that I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. It also has these like quick random cuts between certain things for backstory that is so weirdly edited in certain parts. Like it could just show a random person and then all of a sudden boom, it just does this random cut to a flashback, and we're like, well, is that supposed to be that person? Is this the person's story that we're following? Because I'm a little confused. And then then it'll go back to reality, and then a couple scenes later you'll see a killer walk out, and the killer just stop, and then all of a sudden boom, it'll cut to another flashback, and you're like, okay, well, is that her flashback? Is this her story? Is this the same person's backstory that we just saw 10, 15 minutes ago with this other character? Does that mean this person's the killer and this person, that's her story now? And it's just weirdly edited how they put all that stuff in the movie. I feel like there could have been a more organic, natural way of inserting that stuff into the movie than what they did. And all of this brings the question to me of what was the point of this trilogy? What were they going to say that was so different? Or what were they going to bring to the table that was so different for this trilogy than the original or Pray at Night, for example? I from seeing chapter 2, I don't see what that point is. Granted, we're only two movies in, and I know that there's going to be a third chapter, and apparently chapter 3 is over 2 hours long, so I'm sure that we're going to get a lot of backstory and a lot of explanation, and that's probably going to tie everything up. So I don't want to judge everything based on just these two movies. You never know. The third one could come out, and you watch them all, in sequence of each other, and you're like, wow, that was actually a pretty cool story. Glad that, I held out for the third movie. But as of right now, I do not see what the overall point of this trilogy is. I don't see what new ideas they were bringing to the table for this. I really enjoy Rennie Harlan. That's who's directed these movies. I've enjoyed most of the movies he's done in his past and whatnot, and I don't know what made Rennie Harlan jump on this trilogy and be like, yeah, that's something I want to do or something I want to pursue. I don't know what made him do it, but I mean, his directing style is really good. Like I said, the way that some of the camera work is done in the beginning of the movie and they're in the hospital, all that stuff is very pleasing to the eye, but I just don't know what drew him to this project, and I'm hoping in chapter 3 that will be answered. One of the positives that I forgot to mention, I still do think that the killers look really cool. I still love the look of the killers. It's not as effective as the original, and I know I keep going back to the original, and I apologize. I try not to do that when it comes to remakes, reboots, whatever, because there's certain originals that I hold very close to me, and I try my best to merit a remake or reboot on their own accord. I don't like comparing them, but for this movie, I can't help but go back to the original, so that's why I keep doing that, and I apologize. But the way that the killers looked in the original, I thought was really effective. It's just a simple bag head mask, and you have like these two doll face masks. And I do still like the way that the killers look in these newer movies. I've seen a lot of people claim that they look like Temu knockoff costumes or Wish costumes and all that stuff like that. I don't necessarily see that because they still carry that look of creepiness to them, and I do appreciate that. So to me, the way that they look and the costumes and all that stuff still work. And another thing about this movie is, like I said before about the chase sequence stuff, I found myself really getting bored halfway through the movie. Like I'm like, okay, this movie's only an hour and a half, but the way that the pacing is, I'm like, my God, how much longer is this movie? And that's honestly very bizarre for me to say, because normally I'm so used to 2.5, 3 hour movies that most times when I sit down for an hour and a half movie, they just go by like that. And for this movie, I didn't. It really, really drug. Like throughout these chase sequences, you have little stuff that happens here and there that kind of tries to add a little bit more to the story. But overall, at the end of the day, it's just this long, drawn-out chase sequence. So I'm hoping with chapter 3 there will be more to say. There will be more adds, that gives more life to these first two chapters, that answer that question that I have of why? What is the point of this new trilogy? I know originally these movies were supposed to come out, I think, within the same year, at least the first two chapters, and then I don't know what happened to it. I think, from what I remember reading, was the identity of the killers leaked, or some plot stuff got leaked, so they had to completely go back and redo, I think, parts of Chapter 3, and I know they did some reshoots for Chapter 2, and I'm pretty sure they did some for Chapter 3 as well. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I remember reading back when these things got pushed and pulled and all that stuff from the schedule. So, but I'm hoping with Chapter 3, like I said, that question gets answered, and I hope it wraps everything up in a nice way to where maybe I become a fan of this trilogy by the time this is over. But as for right now, this movie, it's all right. So this is one of those movies that's kind of a toss-up. Me personally, I wouldn't recommend seeing it in theaters. I would wait for the VOD release or to where it's streaming somewhere. But if you're a massive, massive fan of The Strangers, this movie might work for you. Then again, if you're a massive fan of The Strangers, you might be like me and be like, what was the point of all that? And that, at the end of the day, you might be like, it's all right. No matter what, at the end of the day, I encourage everybody to go see something for themselves, because I like everybody to create their own opinion. And this video, this is just my opinion on this movie. So I would see where you stand on the movies overall, and then decide how you would like to go maybe check this movie out. But thank you, everybody. That's my review for The Strangers Chapter 2. If this is the video you're finding me on, please come over and check out all my other 2025 reviews that I've done so far. I've got quite a bit. I'll leave a card somewhere up here for all of you to check out. And as always, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you thought of The Strangers down below, because I'm very curious. But that way I can see all of you in the next one. Thank you so much.